You lose the sale, not because you haven't demonstrated enough value, but because you haven't created enough trust. And
Exactly.
Sam, that mindset, you've changed thousands of people's lives with that mindset shift.
San Diego 911 emergency. You need to come right away. There's a man with a gun and it's loaded. Receiving emergency signal from
4 Charge 1141. We've got a white female down. We need paramedics code please.
all available units. Roll code that way.
Welcome to the De-Escalation Conversations Podcast. With me today is one of my favorite people in the world, Sam Tornatore. Sam's down in Sydney, Australia, and he and I met, many years ago. And I just instantly felt a kinship, a bond with Sam. We've been so blessed. We're on opposite ends of the world, completely different time zones, and yet we've become closer friends, confidants, mentors to each other. We literally have just bounced ideas off each other. There's zero competition and just 100% support. Sam, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Kerry. Thank you very much. And it's my pleasure to be here. And I really appreciate the opportunity to hang with you again and talk. Looking forward to it, my friend. Thank you.
You're welcome. And the reason I wanted to have, Sam did an episode, I believe it was May of 2023, somewhere in there. It's been, coming up on 3 years now that I had you on the show. And I want to say that this episode, folks, it's going to be it's going to seem like it's a little bit different. So here we are talking about de-escalation. But Sam's not a police officer. He's not a firefighter. He's not a school teacher. He's not a medic. But Sam knows more about creating trust, which is a key component of de-escalation, and how to talk to people, how to be persuasive, how to have influence, how to be able to have people see clarity in confusing times. And all of these things are critical for communication and negotiation and de-escalation. So everything that we're going to talk about today is going to revolve around two core components. The first is trust. The second, we're going to be talking about sales. And you might be thinking, well, I'm not involved in sales, Kerry. But in reality, you are. If you're a law enforcement officer, I always used to joke that for 30 years, I sold people into handcuffs without resisting. And that's what it was. And my close rate on that was overall pretty darn good. And there's yes people and no people and maybe people. The yes people, you just tell them, turn around, put your hands behind your back, and then and they do it. And you can almost, before you even get to the point where you're going to be putting somebody in handcuffs, you know which way they're going to go. You know which way. When I was an ER tech in the hospital, and there was no handcuffs or radio to call for extra help other than a couple of nurses out on the floor. When you had a patient that was resistive, combative, as a college professor, I remember teaching at this one college. It's gone out of business. It was a private college. It was called Remington, and they were really trade oriented people. They were teaching you to have a particular job and get job placement. I had never had students that were so resistive to being to participating. It was a shock. I'd never dealt with that before. So being in the classroom and having resistive students, if you're going to get your kids to eat their vegetables, do their chores, go to bed, get off their devices. If you want to go to a particular restaurant or go on a particular vacation or do something while you're on vacation that your mate that's with you maybe does or doesn't want to do. All of that is sales. All of it is. We even if you're not officially a salesperson, you're in sales. And it might be getting an upgrade at a hotel or getting earlier boarding time or a connecting flight while you're traveling, or it could be anything, a free
Absolutely.
dessert when you're at a restaurant. It could
Mm-hmm.
be anything. And I'm not talking just things that benefit you, but making other people's lives better as well as making your life better. So those are the two core topics for today: sales
Yeah.
and trust.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and Sam is an expert in both of these areas. His specialty, I would say, and Sam, tell me if I'm wrong, I think your specialty is connecting with people quickly, developing rapport, and having them realize Sam Tornatore is a guy I can trust. And
Yeah.
just knowing that in their heart before they even realize it in their mind. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, look, thank you, Kerry. Absolutely. I mean, that's how I feel. And look, I will say a couple of things on what you said so far. This has got to be something that's really got to be a core to you as a human being. You know, you've got to be that sort of person where you genuinely want to help people. You generally want to put them in a position better than where they are before they met you. That's part of the ethos that we have. And look, you know, some people just aren't naturally like that. It's all about them. So, you know, good luck to them. But, you know, what I specialize in is people that do have that genuine care factor, and they want to just be able to demonstrate that in an effective way when it comes to any transaction. As you said, doesn't matter it's with your kids, with your spouse, with your out and about, or in a very typical transactional sales situation. You want to be able to genuinely find out what's going on, and if you can genuinely help them in a way that is consistent with building trust. Right. That's the one thing I want to mention. You know, but the other thing too, you said, is that look, the world, that every year that goes on, it seems to get more chaotic, crazier, more options, more commoditization, just more noise, and because of that, the thing that's diminishing rapidly is trust. People look for people they can trust a bit more. Here's the crazy part. Sometimes and often people pay more for a service or a commodity or anything if it's some, they'll pay for trust. So trust is the missing to currency in the world at the moment, and it's the one that's diminishing as time goes by, and it's a depleting resource. I mean, prior to COVID, maybe, yeah, there was a bit more of, you know, a bit more trusting orientation. But since then, look, for many reasons, which we won't get into, but it's diminished. So it's a good time to always understand that one key skill in a genuine fashion, you know.
Yeah. And I think you're being overly generous when you say trust has been diminished. I think it's evaporated.
Yeah,
So
well, in some cases, absolutely.
there's a book written by by a name of a I can't talk today. Written by a guy by the name of Dale Carnegie. Sometimes
Yes,
it's Carnegie. Carnegie.
absolutely. Yeah.
How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Yes.
This book, and I'll tell you the year it was written in just a minute. I've read this book many times, and one of the I highly is it is in my top 5 of books that changed my life and that I recommend to anybody that comes through the idea door. Anybody in our community, I always recommend How to Win Friends and Influence People. But I also always say there's there's two things in that book that do not apply today. It's not that they were wrong when it was written, because the book was written in 1934.
Wow.
And you might think, well, 1934, how could it be applicable in 2026 or beyond? It is. All of the principles are so dead on human nature, except two. And both of them are because in 1934, people trusted each other.
Right. Yeah.
They
Makes sense.
believed each other. Now, were there snake oil salesmen back then? Oh, for sure there were. Were there people selling, the London Bridge in Arizona? Sure there were. Swampland in Florida? You bet.
Hmm.
But the vast majority of people trusted each other.
Yeah.
Today, I would say, and I haven't looked at any recent Gallup poll or anything else, but I would say the vast majority of people do not trust except for a few select people in their life.
Yeah.
If
Yeah,
you
that'd
look
be
at the
fair comment.
media, most people don't
Mm.
trust the news anymore. Fake
Mhm.
news has become the standard response to stuff.
Yes.
Clickbait for the websites that, the headline is this, but the story is completely different, and it's only designed to try and sell you something.
Mm. Mm.
Politicians, even the adage of you could get a second opinion from a doctor. People are getting third and fourth opinions because they don't trust the doctors.
Yeah.
So trust is, I think trust is like gold, in the sense that as gold's value has skyrocketed, so has
Yes.
the value of trust, because it is more rare than diamonds in a lot of ways. And finding someone you can trust, you said it well. People will pay more
Yeah. Absolutely.
because they know that they can trust it, and it's higher. They will pay more. I was at a place last night. There's a really cool place that where you can get um, alkaline water. It's straight from a spring, and in a metropolitan area, that's kind of rare. It's
Mm.
spring water. It's really fresh, clean, really great water. And I was listening to two guys who happened to pull up that knew each other, and they do pools. They work on pools. They service them, like pool cleaning,
Mm.
maintenance,
Yep.
repair.
Yep.
And they were talking about, and they don't work for the same company, and they both have their own pool service companies, and they were talking to each other. It was just enjoyable to be a fly on the wall and just listen to these two guys banter back and forth about their clients. And one of
Yep.
them had said he had taken over a business, and he was describing how the business didn't have a lot of trust, and he's built the business up to where he's being paid more
Mm.
than when he first took over the business, because people know him and know he's going to do good work.
That's awesome. Yeah.
And as they were chatting, there was a pause in the conversation, and I looked over him, and I had helped him because he needed to change out a 20, and I had change for him. So I had already talked to him briefly before the second guy showed up. And I looked at him and I said, people will always pay more for quality, won't they? And his eyes got like big as saucers. He goes, that's exactly it.
Mm.
I give them quality work. And I said, that's why people are willing to pay more for that, because they don't
Yeah.
have to worry about it. But they got to trust that you're going to do that quality work. So
Absolutely.
that's what we're here to talk about. Now,
Mm.
you have said some things, and I, doing my research before we started today, I have a few of your quotes, things that are, to me, classic Sam Tornatore insights.
Okay.
And one of them, and I want to say one thing before we go down
Sure.
this rabbit hole, and it's this. There's a lot of our listeners that have their own business.
Yep.
Whether it's a construction business, a handyman business, doing whatever on the side. And one of the officers I used to work with, he invented a rescue tool that could also be used to pry open security doors when you're serving a warrant. So it could be used on duty, off duty. It's a great little tool. And he started a whole business on this because one day they needed to get in to serve a warrant, and they couldn't get the door off, the security gate off. They couldn't get in. So there's a lot of people who are entrepreneurs running businesses on the side. So this talk today, this talk that Sam and I are having, is really going to be beneficial if you're doing any kind of work. And if you're like, well, no, Kerry, I just do overtime shifts. Well, guess what? Your ability to go in and sell yourself to get special details can make the difference whether you get an overtime assignment or not. So
Yeah,
just,
absolutely.
folks, keep that in mind as you're going, I'm not sure if I want to keep listening because you're going to enjoy hearing from Sam. One of Sam's things that he said is, you lose the sale. You fail to persuade this other person, however you want to look at it. You lose the sale, not because you haven't demonstrated enough value, but because you haven't created enough trust.
Yeah.
I'm going to say that again. You lose the sale, not because you haven't demonstrated enough value, but because you haven't created enough trust. And
Exactly.
Sam, that mindset, you've changed thousands of people's lives with that mindset shift.
Yeah. Yeah. And look, that's a key point, Kerry. I mean, value has been commoditized, right? Everybody believes, let's take a typical sales conversation. Instinctively, the salesperson, they've been conditioned over time to say, I'm just going to give value. The more value I give, the more that they're going to like me, and miraculously they're going to want to do business with me. But the problem with that is that the next person they speak to is giving value, and the next person and the next person. It's everywhere. Everybody's doing the same thing.
Hmm.
The reality of it is that let's say a prospect or your person that you're speaking to is judging you consistently from the moment you open your mouth, the moment you appear on a screen, or the moment you pick up the phone, they're judging you. And they're saying two things to themselves. And this is the irony. And I want people to really digest this, because this is the fundamental. They're saying to themselves, do I trust him or her? And is this person trying to sell me something? Right.
Mhm.
And selling something doesn't necessarily mean, in the traditional sense. It could be, are they pushing their agenda on me? Right.
Mhm.
So they're the two things they're thinking about. Right. So if you can understand that as a starting point, then that will give you some insight as to how everything revolves. So if at the start of that call, doesn't matter how much value you're giving, actually, sometimes it's worse. If you're giving out value, they're thinking to themselves, this person is just trying to convince me. He's just trying to persuade me, right? And he knows nothing, well, about me, right? So as an example, so if they sense that those things are happening, they're going to semi-check out, right? So that's a bit of a starting point. And the other thing too is understand that they're judging you from the minute you start, right? And they're judging you on those two things. So you can't possibly differentiate on your product, your service, your value, because that comes after that they actually use you, or, it's just impossible for them to gauge you, right? So all that's left, Kerry, to judge you on is your approach, is how they feel about you in those early minutes or early bits of the conversation. If they're feeling, oh, this guy's trying to sell me something, or this person is not giving me the time of day, or they're not really present, or they've got an agenda, it's all over. Okay. But if they feel, on the contrary, if they say, you know what, this person really wants to understand me. This person is not in a rush to move to a solution. This person wants to understand if they genuinely can help my situation. That's where trust is established. Trust is established when people feel like someone understands them. That's the key. I can't hear you, Kerry. I don't know if something's
I
happened.
agree
Oh,
with
there.
you. Yes, I had accidentally muted myself when I was
You're
coughing.
right.
Um, well, I purposely muted. I thought I unmuted. So this whole concept of understanding people, wanting to be
Mm,
understood, as I take people through our de-escalation process, one of the things I point out is everybody in the world has an addiction, and it's the same addiction. And the addiction is to be understood.
exactly. Well done. Well said.
And so what you're doing is you're feeding their addiction to be
Mm,
understood, and simply that act of attempting to understand where that person is coming from, the lens that they're looking through, the perspective that they have, that is a major factor, not even a key factor. It's a major factor
yeah, spot
in
on, Kerry.
creating
Spot on.
trust.
Yeah, yeah, you nailed it.
So there's a concept of perception and perspective. I have my
Mm,
perception of the situation, my
mm,
perception of you as a person, and then you have your perspective. And to create that trust, create that sense of Kerry understands me. He gets where I'm coming from. Kerry gets me.
mm.
I have to. It's requirement for me to attempt to see through the lens that you're looking through.
Exactly.
So let me ask you this, Sam. How do you take someone from zero? I just met Sam on Zoom, just shook his hand, just standing in line behind him at the grocery store. How do you take someone from zero to Sam gets me? What
Right.
are some ideas that you can give our listeners?
Yeah, look, that's a very practical step, Kerry. And look, in a couple of summaries, first of all, that conversation or that introduction, that anything has to start. It's all about them, not you, right? And what do most salespeople do? Oh, let me tell you about me. Let me tell you about my company. Let me tell you about how great we are, right? So the conversation needs to start with them. Now, let's say you know nothing about them or very minimal, right? You would actually simply say in that sort of conversation, look, maybe take a step back and just walk me through a little bit about your situation, what's going on in your life, or what context that you're looking at, right? But put it back to them and get them to walk you through a little bit of a story about where they're at, what their situation, and here's the other thing, what's on their mind or what's their concerns, what are they worried about, or what's, it's always in context with the situation. But let's make it simple. Let's say it's a classic sales situation where you're solving a problem. That's what most people do. And look, let me say, if you're not solving a problem, then you really shouldn't be in selling, right? Because then you have an agenda and you're trying to pitch something. So let's say you're solving a problem, someone comes to you, they've got a concern, and they're obviously not really willing to just blurb out telling you all their problems. So you've got to approach it in a guarded way and respect them. And you would start that conversation by saying, hey, Kerry, good to meet you. And you say, Kerry, look, maybe take a step back and just walk me through a little bit about what's going on in your business, where you're at the moment, and possibly your primary concern right now that's going on. And we can start with that. Would that be okay with you, Kerry? Now, see how I asked the question? I didn't start assuming that you were going to tell me. I would say, look, Kerry, if it's okay with you, can you share with me a little bit about XYZ? Now, if most human beings would love the opportunity to start talking about themselves and sharing that. And you know what? If you do this right, be prepared. It'll be a long conversation from their end, which is what you want. And that's, Kerry, where trust is being built straight from hello. At that point, that person's thinking, what a refreshing approach. This person genuinely wants to know about me, and whatever his product or service or pitch is, it's not even in the equation at the moment. So it's all about getting to where they're at, the truth, and understanding what their situation or problems or concerns are before you want to sell anything. Otherwise, I have this nice analogy I say to people. It's like, if you don't do that first, you're actually selling medicine without understanding someone's medical history, right? You go to jail for that.
I was just going to say that's a crime to prescribe medicine, for a doctor to prescribe medicine without having a proper exam / interview.
Yeah.
Doctors can prescribe medicine without having met you, but it's a very specific set of questions that they have to ask. They have to know it's you. You have to prove your identity, and then they can do it by remote. But all these questions give them the information about your medical condition to where they can go, yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even if you came to me as a patient saying, I want this medicine, I've researched it, I know it's the right one, the doctor still has to ask all these history questions to be able to know what the right treatment is. Because just because you asked for Tylenol doesn't mean that Tylenol is the best thing. You might have a brain tumor.
Exactly. Exactly.
And if I tell you to take Tylenol, yeah, your headache will go away and you'll die because you have a brain tumor.
Yeah.
And until I fully understand your medical condition, can't prescribe you anything.
Exactly.
It's funny. I remember a situation. I don't remember where I was at exactly, but it was a business of some sort. And I asked, hey, do you guys have some, like in your first aid kit, some Tylenol, Advil, I have a really bad headache. And they said, well, actually, we can't give that to you.
Hmm.
It's only for the employees. We can't give it to you because if something else was wrong with you, we might be doing you harm. I was like,
Yeah.
oh my God, just give me some Tylenol or Advil, is some headache medicine. Like, we can't. It's a liability.
Yeah. Right.
So, all right. So you've asked the person about their situation. They've
Mm.
explained, but maybe you think that there's more to it. Maybe they gave you a surface level response.
Yeah. Yeah.
What are some ways that you dive deeper with family, friends, clients to be able
Mm.
to I'm going to say two things. Number one, to understand them better. And number two, we know that people put up a facade a lot of times.
Yeah.
My
Yeah.
business is great. My family's great. It's like what they post on LinkedIn and Facebook. None of it's true.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everything's great. We're having a blast. We're traveling. They don't tell you about the hiccups at the airport and the flight delays and the cancellation and the lost luggage. Oh, I went to the East Coast and everything was wonderful.
Mm.
Yeah, there's something that went on behind the scenes that you're not sharing. So how do you get
Yeah.
beyond the facade, or maybe they gave you a little clue about what a problem is that you can help them with, but you need to understand that problem more. Tell me
Yeah.
more about those headaches.
Look, absolutely, Kerry. I mean, and look, that's a good point. So let me just clarify a few things there because there's a general tendency, everyone does talk about how great their world is and you know what, the thing that's most important to people is really what's going on in their own world that they're concerned about, right? What their worries are or their problems. I mean, most people have got some kind of worry or problem somewhere and that's really all they're thinking about most of the time, right? And or they're thinking about a solution around that problem. So that's where serious, deep, meaningful conversation when it comes when it happen, where when people connect around their problems and when they feel understood around their problems, right? But you're right. People aren't just going to always blurb that out. So sometimes, once again, let's take a sales conversation. Come on board, you're having a conversation. They're not as really open to saying all the different things. Now, it does start with the way that you actually ask permission to get them to tell you, like we talked before, right? And I said to you, look, Kerry, if it's okay with you, tell me a little bit about XYZ and some of your concerns and what's going on. So let's take a couple of scenarios here. Let's say you were quite vague and you didn't give me much, but I did hear something, right? I would actually then get that, whatever that was, and I'd repeat it back to you. And I'd say, Kerry, so what you're saying to me is that you've got a concern around XYZ, right? Is that right? And you would say, that's right. Now, if I don't have enough, I'd say, can you tell me a little bit more about that in a bit more detail? Just simple like that. But Kerry, the thing is, you can't be aggressive about it. You got to be soft. You got to use. It's got to have that smooth voice with no agenda, no hype, with care. You say, Kerry, can you tell me a little bit more about that in a bit more detail? I'd like to know more. I'd like to understand more about what you've just said because that sounds like an important issue for you. Would you be open to sharing with me a bit more? Now, see those words, open, sharing, tell me a bit more, right? My tone, it's all consistent to encourage you to tell me more. Now, if you didn't tell me more, then I'd say, let's take a sales scenario. I'd say, well, Kerry, sounds like everything's great in your world and you've got some good things happening. And unless there's something else, I'm not hearing anything that's a concern for you. Put it back on them. So if there's no concerns here, I don't know if I can actually help you with anything. Now that's a shock because they're not expecting that. They'll be thinking, you're a salesman, you're supposed to pitch me something. No, there's no pitching here. We only solve problems. And it sounds like from what you're saying to me, you don't have any problems. So have a nice day in a nice way, of course, right?
something popped into my head. I don't know if you get much being down in Sydney, country music from the States, but there's a country artist been around. He's really quite famous, Tim McGraw. I don't know if you've ever heard of him.
Mm-hmm.
There's a song, and I just been listening to it yesterday while I was driving. And the song is Always Be Humble and Kind.
Yeah.
And that's the theme of the song, is how do you live your life? And everything that you're talking about is you're making it about the other person. That's
Absolutely.
humble.
Yeah.
You're asking him to understand the other person's situation before you even know whether or not you can help them. You have to understand them.
Exactly.
And that's kind. Always be humble and kind.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I just, it's one of my favorite songs, and I haven't heard it for a long time. And I ironically just heard it yesterday, and all of the lyrics, the whole basis of the song is exactly what you are describing.
Yeah, yeah. And look, to give you a little bit more context, see, let's take that scenario. Someone's giving you something. It could be what I call a surface level problem, right? Now, the tendency for most people, whether it be in whatever situation is, but if it's a sales situation, once they hear that, they think to themselves, great, I got a solution for you. I can help you with that. Let me show you, right? And they're off to the races, right? Whereas that's a critical moment. And at that point, instead of going forward, I would suggest to everybody that's your opportunity to go deeper. So imagine this like an iceberg, right? So the top of the iceberg is what they've just told you. Something simple, something that's, I've got a concern about X, Y, Z, right? And most people will take that and think, great, I got what I'm after. Let me show you how I can help you, right? That's typically what happens. But at that point, go down the iceberg and find out what the truth is behind that problem, the depth of it, and the magnitude of it. So the next thing you might say to someone after you say to them, tell me a bit more about that, you listen, and then you might say this: how long has that been an issue for you, Kerry? Right? Now, they're not expecting that. That's a care question. That's saying, holy, that's serious. How long has that been an issue for you? How long has this been on your mind? Right? How much time do you spend thinking about that? And that's you with care, right? And then a series of other questions down the iceberg just to really identify what's going on. And Kerry, when you get to what I call the bottom of the iceberg, you still can't assume that they're going to want to do something about it. You actually have to ask them if it's a priority for them to solve or address, or if there's something that you're open to some solutions around or some ideas around. That's, you can't be assumptive there either. And, but that process that I've just described is called going down the iceberg. And it's really a key point with everybody in all those situations you described before. You need to get down to what's going on with them, what their concerns are, what's on their mind, and once people see that, they'll think, man, this guy gets me. He actually cares. He actually is more interested in me than whatever he's offering. Does that make sense?
It makes total sense. I can remember when I was on submarines, our first couple of deployments, I did 8 deployments total. And I spent a lot of time underwater. We called it punching holes in the ocean. And the first couple of patrols, you could smoke on the submarine, which if you think about it, is like smoking on an airplane.
Yeah, right.
Because it's a closed air circulation system. And you could only smoke in the crew lounge. You couldn't smoke everywhere on the ship. You could smoke in the crew lounge. And every Friday morning, everybody got woken up, and you had what was called field day. And field day was cleaning the ship, cleaning the boat. And our area that we were responsible for was the crew lounge. And I would a sponge in a bucket of soapy water, and I'd be cleaning the walls, and this yellow nicotine garbage would come off the walls. I'm like, why do people smoke? And I remember talking to one guy, and he was coughing. It was like, I had respiratory problems. And I remember asking him, do you want to quit? He goes, I thought about it. I've tried it a couple times, but not really. It wasn't a priority to him.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It was a priority to me because I was tired of smelling the smoke and tired of cleaning up the mess that every single week there was new yellow garbage on the walls. It's a priority to me. It's not a priority to him. And I can't make him quit smoking.
Exactly.
So even though I knew how he could quit, and I knew why it was good for him, he knew it too. He knew all of that. It just wasn't important enough for him to do. Whether it was to spend the money or the effort or the inconvenience or the cravings, none of that. So your point of asking the person and not assuming anything, just asking them, is this a priority for you?
Yes.
Brilliant. Brilliant.
Absolutely. I mean, you ask any therapist, right? They'll probably say the same thing to you. They'll say the worst patients are the patients that don't want to own their problem, right? They don't think they got a problem, right? They're the worst patients. And, and look, the reality is not everybody wants to solve their problems. That's okay, right? It's your human right, no issue, right? And you as a salesperson, it's not your job to convince someone that they need something, right? Because that's their prerogative. They need to understand their own problems themselves. And then you, as the professional, help them see what they can't see. Then they'll respect you because they'll think, wow, this person knows a lot about my problems and things that I wasn't aware myself. Now, see how that's a subtle shift? They're not impressed with your ability on how you can solve something or your value. They're impressed on your ability to diagnose, if you want to call it that, their situation, add light to the problem that they're not aware of. That's where trust is developed. That's where respect is earned as well, because you help them see something that they weren't able to see. And it could be a ramification or a consequence of their problem, or simply an awareness about something. And they think, wow, I didn't know that. This Kerry, he's onto something. I like him. He's shown me some things I didn't aware of. And all that time, Kerry, you're not pitching anything.
Right. You're just asking them about them.
Exactly.
I liked how a few moments ago you talked about how long has this been a problem? A great quantifiable. How can we quantify the problem? When you and I have talked before, you've talked, what is the cost of doing things the way that you're doing? What's the cost to you continuing to smoke?
Yeah.
And cigarettes are expensive, and at least in the United States, they're very expensive with taxes and everything else. What's the cost to you to continue smoking? And then so those are quantifiable questions. And when you and I talked before, we talked about the quality questions. How does that affect you? What does that feel like when you're coughing and hacking? What's your quality of life with this problem? What's the quality of your business? What's it like when you don't make money? But you're spending money on ads or spending effort on putting up social media posts, and you're not getting any leads out of it. What does that feel like for you? How does that land with you? So you've got the quantifiable money, and then you've got the quality of what's that experience like? I feel rejected. I feel like I'm wasting my time. I was talking to two guys who had started a podcast, and they've been doing it for like 6 months. They were getting no traction. No, it was so frustrating for them. And they were pouring their hearts into it. They were spending a lot of time, both of them, on it. And I was talking to them about it. And I said, so with this podcast that nobody's listening to, you've told me about how much time, quantifiable, how much time you're putting into it. how much effort you're putting into it. What's it like when you look at the views and there's 3 people that watched it and they didn't even watch it all the way through? What's that experience like for you when that happens? The quality question.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the guy was almost in tears as I was talking to him. He goes, I feel like I'm rejected. I feel like I'm just spinning my wheels. I'm wasting my time. I could have been spending time with my family instead of doing this, but here I am trying to use this podcast to grow my business. I'm getting nowhere with it. And he was almost in tears about it. It hurt him that deeply.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the gap between where people are and where they want to be.
Correct. Yeah.
So why is it to you, why is it important to help people see that gap?
Great
I mean,
question.
shouldn't people just know that automatically?
Well, that's the thing, right? I mean, and what you've said there, that's a lot more of depth to the iceberg. And I'm glad you've mentioned it, because this is where most people get the first part, but where they struggle with is going down that iceberg a bit further. And what you said is classic. I'm going to repeat it, but it gives you a sense of what I'm talking about. And I'll answer your question with this as well. So what you've just described to that person is helping them see the reality and the truth of their situation, right? Now, here's a lot of this is the truth for many people, is that people don't want to go there because it's uncomfortable. They don't like it. They don't like seeing that, oh, this is causing me some kind of discomfort. So human nature is they want to get out. They don't want to really be in that zone at all. So that helps them avoid making decisions. It avoids the analysis by paralysis, and also it helps them avoid, I'll worry about that later. Well, guess what? It's a real problem. It's probably not the best thing for you to worry about that later, because it's a real problem now. So that there, what you've just done is what I call showing them the impact of the problem, helping them see the consequences, helping them see the depth of it. Now, this is the part, Kerry, where you imagine you're like a doctor where you're helping them see what they can't see. You say, yep, you've told me about that podcast not working, right? But have you considered that this might be triggering this? Or you might say, what's the impact of that podcast not working? Have you given thought to the consequences of that? Are you aware that if you continue at this rate, there might be some detrimental costs associated with it? Or just the simple, how is this affecting you? What's the impact? And what's the ripple effect to you of you not getting this right? See, those questions are all aimed at helping, I won't say expose, but helping shed a light on the reality of the cost of the problem. Now, cost doesn't always have to be intangible. It could be emotional costs, could be keeping you up at night, could be relationships with your partners. Costs are but no one's ever really taken the time. And that's why it's like a diagnosis, saying, look, we're discovering here what the real issues are and the implications. Then once you know that, and you've helped them see that, or they're telling you, now you know what the real depth of the problem is. You're down the iceberg. Then it becomes their choice whether they want to do anything about that, right? And then that's the simplest way to describe that, is helping them see what they can't see. Now you got the full picture. Is it a priority or not? And I'm okay either way, right? I'm not assumptive here. I'm not assuming that because we've done that, you want to help. I'm okay either way. Is it a priority for you? So I think that's the missing ingredient for a lot of people, is that they don't really understand the true consequences of not doing some things. And I just call it as simple as this, Kerry: the cost of inaction. That's it. You do nothing here about your situation. You keep smoking. You don't make changes. You keep that podcast going. You keep that lead generation activity that's not working for you. What's the cost of you not making any changes here? That's the consideration point, and that's what most people don't give a lot of thought to.
Yeah, if you continue going down the same path that you're going down,
yeah,
what are the ramifications? What are the consequences?
Yeah,
Yeah. So everybody talks about ROI, return on investment. You're talking about COI, cost of inaction.
exactly. Exactly. Thank you. Exactly. You nailed it. Yeah.
Love that.
COI, cost of inaction.
Yeah.
And then
What's
look,
the
if the cost of inaction is nothing, great, no problem. Have a nice day. But if the cost of inaction is something serious, well, maybe you might want to consider being the appropriate word, some options around that. If you don't want that cost, and if you want a way out of that, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I absolutely love that because for some people, like the one person I'm thinking of that was a smoker, to him it wasn't a big deal.
Exactly.
To
Yeah.
other people, it's a really big deal.
Yeah.
You know, I,
Yeah.
I still a dear friend of mine um, that that helps me with ideas. She's one of our instructors, Diane. Her parents both smoked.
Mm.
When I don't remember if it was when Diane was born or when her mom was pregnant with her. I forget which, but I know at the point when Diane came into this world for sure. I know for sure when she was born, both of her parents, which they smoked a lot, and they had
Yeah.
smoked for years, and it was that time frame because Diane was born in the early '60s. You know,
Mm.
so through the '50s, you know, her dad was in the Navy, so everybody in the military smoked because they got free cigarettes in the MRE packs,
Mm.
and you know, it was just a social thing to do. But as soon as Diane was born, cold turkey, both went,
Yeah.
we can't smoke around our daughter.
Exactly.
The cost of inaction was too great.
Exactly.
So they took the uncomfortable route of going, we're stopping smoking. They
Yeah.
didn't go through, you know, they didn't have nicotine patches or Nicorette gum or any of that stuff back then. They just
Yeah.
can't smoke around our daughter. And
Oh man,
what cool parents is that? I mean,
yeah.
I've always said Diane won the lottery when it came to her parents. 100%. 100%. They're just amazing people. I love them, love them, love them.
Yeah.
But think about the love that a parent has to collectively for them both to look at each other and go, we're done.
Oh
And
man.
stopping smoking is hard,
Yeah.
especially back then when nobody really understood everything about smoking.
Yeah.
You know, there wasn't the awareness and knowledge of the addictiveness and everything. They just knew we got to stop. So,
Yeah. Man, that's a good story, Kerry. I feel compelled to say something there because
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
sure
yeah.
there's probably some listeners listening to this part and there may be smokers. Look, let me say I don't ever coach anybody on how to give up smoking. I think it's a sensitive. I've never been a smoker, so I can't coach anybody on how to do something I've never done. It's just that would be it's just what's the word?
Disingenuous. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, hypocritical, right? So if you boil down all the motivational books on the planet, it really
Mhm.
human behavior is driven by two things, and it's always there's always variations, but it comes down to two things. We're either motivated to move towards pleasure or move away from pain. That's it, right? Those two things. So when it comes to that story you've just mentioned, all I've heard is that look, if they don't make a change here, that's a lot of pain, serious pain. So I need to move away from that. That's the catalyst to change. It's all over, game over, right? That's the difference. And
Yeah.
the story I want to share with you, which is very similar. My mother-in-law at the time, I mean, she's not my mother-in-law now, but you know, at the time, she was a hardcore smoker, right? And I remember hardcore all her life, serious smoker, right? You know the type. And it doesn't matter what I said, my wife at the time said, it doesn't matter what she would read, we'd throw things in front of her, nothing changed her, right? And then, and this is the critical part, when it comes to moving away from pain, one of my kids, I think it was my daughter, right, went up to her and we were talking or something, and she just said this is it, all in one word. She said, Nana, we don't want you to die. And she was sad. I can't remember if she cried or not, but she said, Nana, We just don't want you to die. Can you please stop smoking? In that moment, Kerry, that's it. She
Wow.
didn't want to see the pain of her grandkids have that and have any experience of that. That was the catalyst for change. So I don't know how we digressed on that, but I just thought
No,
I had to throw that in.
it's persuasion, it's influence, it's impact, it's understanding, it's everything that we're talking about.
Yeah.
It's everything.
Yeah. Thanks for
There's
that opportunity.
there's a guy I'll give a shout out to. I have so much respect for this guy. His name is Chase Hughes. You can find it if you go well Google or you go on YouTube and search for Chase Hughes. He was he worked for the career-long CIA. He was a trainer, and he does a lot of work around mindset, what truly will allow you to have shifts in your life that work. And I'll put a link to this in the description, because again, I think he does amazing work. He has this 11-minute video, and I've seen it before, and I just watched it yesterday. And he was talking about what actually works. He talks about neurotransmitters that I talk about. I talk about the dose neurotransmitters: dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, endorphins.
Yes.
All the time. Talk about the dose, DOSE. And he talks about dopamine and serotonin in particular in this video. He covers a lot of ground in just 11 minutes. And what truly helps people shift things. And so in sales, in de-escalation, it's all human behavior.
Yes.
And especially with de-escalation, it's, and a lot of it with sales too, it's unconscious, non-conscious, subconscious behaviors.
Yes.
That are just popping out. People say and do things. When you ask them a question and they give a surface level response, it's because they don't trust you enough to give you a true response. They don't want to.
Exactly.
Yeah. I one of the things I teach is and I actually equate it to the iceberg. The top part. So when you talk about going down the iceberg, folks, if you think about it, the amount of the iceberg that's visible above the waterline, as the Titanic was shooting through the water, how much of the iceberg they could see? About 10%. It's actually technically 13, but we'll call it 10%. And then below the water is the 90%. So as you go down the iceberg, Sam, as you're talking about, is going deeper and deeper and deeper into areas that people normally don't see. So I use public life, private life, secret life. Public life is the iceberg above the water. What people post on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram, TikTok. Life is great. Wonderful is great. My wife is great. My work is great. My kids are great. They always listen to me. They never talk back. They always do exactly what I ask them to do. They never argue. They never fight. They never punch another kid at school without reason. Life is wonderful. That's Facebook, Instagram, social media profiles. That's public life. Private life is the stuff you only share with a couple of people. And that's about the next 80% of the iceberg. And the very bottom of the iceberg is what I call secret life. Bottom 10% of the iceberg. That's stuff that people rarely reveal to maybe even anybody. Now, in a true conversation, especially when you're talking about trust-based selling that you teach people how to do, sometimes you dive into that secret life with people when they go, I don't know if I'm going to keep being a CPA. I don't know if I'm going to keep being a financial advisor. I was shocked when you and I got into this role of teaching financial advisors in particular, this particular niche that you and I have worked heavily in. I was shocked at how many financial advisors are in the business for a couple of years and then they bail out. I knew that happened with realtors. Folks that sell houses, whether commercial or commercial property or like single family homes, condos and stuff. I knew there was a lot of realtors that did not make it. I did not know there was so many financial advisors that did not make it. that it's
Mm.
they churn them in and out, especially the bigger companies like Morgan Stanley and you name them, TD Ameritrade. What's that one that's in a lot of neighborhoods? It's a guy's name.
Edward
Um,
Jones.
Edward Jones. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
It's funny because I worked with a guy. His name was Eddie Jones. His name was Edward Jones. So
Yeah.
there's so many of them that don't make it because they're not taught how to do the things that Sam, you teach them how to do, which is establish trust.
Mm. Mm.
And
Yeah.
when they tell you, and I have no doubt you've had this type of conversation. I know I have. When I got them into that secret life area about their business, we're
Yes.
not going secret life about their personal life. I don't want to know, what they did as a teenager that they're ashamed of or as an adult that they're ashamed of. I'm talking secret life of their business, their professional life. And they're saying, I've had 100 meetings this year, and we're not even halfway through the year, and not one of these 100 people signed up as a client. I
Mm.
feel like a complete failure. I don't even know why I even wanted to do this business. I've invested time, money, my reputation's at stake. I just don't know what to do. And I'm at the end of my rope right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when you create enough trust with somebody that they tell you those things, and it's not some anonymous crisis call line like cop line that that we have for law enforcement officers and their families where they can call up and talk to us anonymously about the stresses and the horrible things that they're going through right now. This is a financial advisor or the key people that you and I have worked with in the past.
Yes.
But when you ask the right questions, people will tell you, they will open up because nobody else is asking them those questions.
Yeah. That's right, Kerry. And then the two, their agenda is to make a sale or to move forward or to pitch a product or a service like that,
Yeah.
right? So, the key is to stay into their world as deep as you can until they say to you, how can you help me? Right? That's a big shift, right? And that's the holy grail. When you get someone, you'll know when someone feels comfortable enough with you, and this doesn't have to be a long process, right? I mean, as long as they understand that, yeah, I'm safe here. This person has no agenda. He genuinely wants to know about me. And okay, we've talked about my problem and we've talked about the consequences and the cost of inaction. Don't be surprised if you've done this properly. Your prospect or whoever you're speaking to will say to you, how can you help me here? Well, what's the next step? Well, how do you work? Right? They're all signals that say to you, you've done what you're supposed to do is to get real with them and understand. You're creating what I call, a moment of vulnerability where they realize, you know what, you're right. There's some things here I need to address. How can you help me? Right. And that's the segue, that's the shift. Um, but yeah, look, it's not rocket science, Kerry. It's just that, first of all, you got to be aware of the shift mentally you got to make here. Move away from being pitcher, salesperson, agenda driven, and move towards, I call it the doctor patient mindset, where you're diagnosing, helping them see what they can't see. And if they want some help, well, yeah, you're the specialist in it, but you only help people that want to be helped.
You
That's
can
the
only help the people that want to be helped. Yes, that's
yeah.
yeah, 100% true.
Mm,
100% true. So
mm,
I'm going to ask you one last question.
sure.
How can people who want to be helped find Sam Tornatore?
Okay, well, look, let me just put a bit of a qualifier in there for you, and I'll answer that for you. If people are listening to this, and let's say people are having what I call qualified conversations with people, and you know what I mean. You're talking with people, they've got the problem you can help them with, they've got the money, they've got the timing, they're ready to go. That's what I call a qualified or semi-qualified conversation. If you're having a qualified conversation with people, and to use your example, let's say that financial advisor was 100 and he's having 100 qualified conversations with people. If you're losing, I'll say any of them, or if you're losing a good portion of them, then somewhere in that conversation, the reason they haven't come on board with you is because you haven't been able to establish trust, and trust has been broken. Now, let me say, Kerry, I'm not saying people, you're untrustworthy. I'm not saying financial advisors are untrustworthy. I'm saying from the prospect's point of view, they don't feel like they can trust you to do the job, right? So this is an emotional decision, not a logic one, right? So if people are having conversations, you think about this straight line of sight. They're over here. They have a problem. They're ready to go. They can't sort it out themselves. If they would have done it already. You're over here. You have the solution, expertise, the credibility, the know-how. It's a straight line of sight. The only reason that drops off is something is happening in that conversation, and it's around breaking trust. And there's probably something you're doing. And I'd say, without listening to many conversations that people are having, probably too much rapport building, too much trying to be their friend, too much overeducation, too much into solution land, and doing all that before you've actually really identified what the person's problem is and the depth of it, right? So if people are having conversations that are not converting, that represents a trust issue most times. And if people are having exposure to, they're doing marketing, they're doing lead generation, and they're not getting leads, very similar scenario. It's a trust broken issue as well, especially if they're engaging in the things that are highly commoditized that everybody else is doing. All the languaging, hey, look how great we are. Look what we can do, right? That's all. You got to shift that, right? So if people can put their hand up and say to themselves, in a genuine fashion, say, you know what? I have some conversations sometimes, they're just not landing, and they should, right? If that describes a viewer, then, if they're open to it, then I'm happy to do a deep dive into their world, find out what they're doing. Chances are high that I'll see some things there that aren't working for them and they're breaking trust. And if that's the case, I'm happy to give them some insights around that, right? And because everybody's situation is unique. And for those people that really want to grasp this topic a bit more, with Ari, we've got a series of books that are all around trust, developing trust in your life and trust in sales and trust in business. And look, by virtue of you, Kerry, I'm going to offer them complimentary to people. They can go to my website. It's I probably on the show links there, but it's www.unlockthegame.com/SamT, right? Just nice and simple. It's 4 letters, SamT. Go to that and you can get our books sent to you complimentary, and you've got the opportunity to have a consultation direct with me, right? And in that conversation, I'll understand your situation a bit more. We'll dive into it. If there's an area there that's trust related, then I'm happy to share some insights and ideas on how you can close that gap once and for all. And you never be in a situation where you have to say, I've lost an opportunity because of whatever. I don't even know what it was, right? Bear in mind that some of these people, got big ticket items. Every sale is worth a lot of money. So you shouldn't be losing any, Kerry. No one should ever be losing anything due to a lack of trust. It just makes no sense. If people are open to that, you're welcome there, and happy to help and give you some insights.
Well, it's very generous. Not only a set of books, but also the opportunity to talk with you at zero cost for any of it. That's really generous of you, Sam. Thank you so, so much.
And being consistent with what we're talking about, no pressure, no selling. If anybody wants anything further, they have to ask. Right? That's not what we're about. It's genuinely a diagnostic conversation.
Makes perfect sense. Makes perfect sense. Sam, thanks for being on the show. Thanks for giving of your time so generously. Thank you for the offer of the free books and the free consultation. That's awesome. I love our conversations. Any time with Sam Tornatore is good time. So thanks for being here.
Thanks, Kerry. My pleasure. It's been great as usual. And look, I just really hope people just take on board, even if it's one thing out of this podcast, and if it changes their life, their attitudes, or their their relationships, it's a good thing. It's what we're all about. We're all here to be better human beings. It doesn't have to be in selling per se. It just needs to be in communication, understanding people. You mentioned about Dale Carnegie. There's one quote that I always found fascinating. Everybody wants to be interesting, right? They go to events, social parties. We want people to be, see us as interesting, right? Well, here's the key. You want to be seen as interesting, be interested in them, right?
Yeah.
And by virtue of being interested in other people and what's going on in their world, you just try it out. It'll blow your mind. And
For
by
sure.
default,
Yeah.
they'll think you're interesting.
Yeah. Don't try to be interesting. Try to be interested in other people.
Perfect.
Love it.
Kerry.
Love it.
Perfect.
Great quote to end on. Sam, thank you for being here. Folks, check them out at unlockthegame.com/Sam, T as in Tornatore.
That's it.
Everybody who's listening, check out also our website, theidea.world. You're going to find a ton of training opportunities available. You can research a lot of different subjects. We have a brand new anti-bullying program called Peace Power. It's a complete curriculum meant for teachers, youth group leaders. If you work with Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, foster youth, Boys and Girls Clubs, anything like that, this Peace Power anti-bullying conflict resolution curriculum is for you. And you can sign up now to have a free peek at it. It's pretty cool what we have put together for you. Folks, until next time, please, as always, stay safe and do unto others before they even think about doing unto you.
Thanks, Kerry. See you
Bye
next
for
time.
now.
Bye-bye.
You found a lot of great value in this episode of the De-Escalation Conversations podcast. Please be sure to go out to our website, theidea.world, THEIDEA.world. On that website, just click on the link that resonates with you most. If you're a K-12 educator, if you're a firefighter, medical services, law enforcement, flight attendants, whatever industry you're in, we have specialized training for you. So check that training out, because literally it can save your life, it can save your relationship, it can save your career. So check out theidea.world. I'll look forward to seeing you soon. Take care. This is Kerry here, and thanks for watching this episode of the De-Escalation Conversations podcast. I hope you got some great insights that you can use right away. But don't stop here. Click that video link above and keep the momentum going with another powerful episode. And hey, if you haven't already, please hit that like button and the subscribe bell so you never miss an episode. New strategies, new stories, and new ways to connect coming your way every week. See you in the next episode.